Today we're going to have a discussion about salaries, and you might be thinking, Victoria, you've covered salaries in a lot of different videos. Well, this one I actually want to talk about the 2021 AAPC salary survey results. The AAPC polls their members every single year on their salary and some other factors like productivity and publishes it typically in their February issue. All AAPC members have access to Healthcare Business Monthly. By default, though, you get a digital copy, which is in your AAPC account if you are a paid member. However, if you want the print copy, what you need to do is go onto your AAPC profile preferences on your account. And this box here that says Healthcare Business Monthly, you have to uncheck this box because it says here Healthcare Business Monthly. Check this box to go paperless. So if you want the paper copy, you have to uncheck this box. But paper or paperless, you definitely want to read Healthcare Business Monthly, not only for the CEUs, just for the great information as well. Now, one of the things I want to stress is this is the AAPC salary survey. So no AHEMA members, unless they are also credentialed with the AAPC, answered. And this is just based on the responses that the AAPC received from their members that responded to the surveys. But if you're not an AAPC member, you still can access this because salaries are kind of an important factor that people consider when they are thinking about a career in medical coding. So the information is publicly available. What you do is you go into the resources section and then into the knowledge center. So I am completely logged out. This is a logged out account. And you can find it here in the Knowledge Center right here. 2021 salary survey shows market rebound. But let's take a look at some of the factors that we have here. And I especially want to look at some of the charts that we have. So one of the first things they show is that unemployment is down. I think that's not just necessarily medical coding, but the world in general. You know, there was a lot of things that took a big dive because of the pandemic, and we are starting to see things creep back up to not normal yet, but getting closer to it. So this chart here I found a little bit confusing, and I'm actually going to zoom this in real quick. So at first glance, I thought this was the overall national average of unemployment, but it's not. Because if you look here, it's the 2.4%. The overall unemployment rate among survey takers was 9.4% in 2021. So this is everyone who took the survey. So all AAPC members saw a 9.4% unemployment rate. Now CPCs was at 3.2. So CPCs specifically was at 3.2. The apprenticeship status, the CPCAs, were at a much higher rate of unemployment because they are new. So it's going to take a longer time for them to get a first position after they've completed their training and are still an apprentice coder. So you can see that getting your apprenticeship status removed will not only remove your A, but could potentially give you a better chance at finding employment, because you can see this huge difference from our apprentice coders versus our CPCs without that apprentice designation. Now the next chart demonstrates the increase in salaries that we have. So you can see the 2020 to 2021, basically everything has increased. It looks like those that have a high percentage of years experience have plateaued maybe around the 16 to 20 year mark, has stayed about the same, but it looks like, you know, overall, when you increase your years of experience, you obviously increase your salary over the years. And that has even shown growth just from last year compared to the more current year. I'm going to link this in the description below so that you can take a look as well if you need a closer look at some of these charts and the exact numbers on them. I really like that they break this down by years of experience, because when myself or others say things like, oh, well, the average medical coding salary is $50,000 a year, we're talking about average. So everyone that does medical coding, and that includes people with no experience and those people that have 20 plus years of experience. So this is an important breakdown. The starting salaries, the people that have the 0 to 1 year experience, you can see are earning more around the $38,900 range. Now, once you've got a couple of years of experience, you've got maybe 5 to 9 years of experience, then you're more up at that $50,000 range, and that continues to climb. And then one of the things I love about this salary survey is they also break down things like by your job responsibilities, by your credentials. And this is the next one that we're going to look at, is the job responsibility. So a lot of people get into medical coding and they decide that, you know what, I actually want to work in billing, or I want to work in practice management. They move on to compliance or auditing. So you can see how the shift in salary goes from some of those coding and billing positions versus an auditor. There's a significant jump in there. If we look here, the average biller coder, 48,925 versus the average auditor, 63,661. Not to plug anything, but I do have a training course if you're interested in becoming a medical auditor. It is a very complicated credential to go for, so you need to have a base of coding knowledge, a good base of coding knowledge before going into auditing. So it's not something that teaches you to code and audit coding. It is, you already know how to code and now you're going into auditing. So I will actually link that below, and a 20% off coupon if you're interested in my auditing course. Now, practice manager, office manager is actually somewhat comparable to some of our auditing salaries here. If you look, they're not too far off. And then the coding and billing manager, you can see an increase in there, and then really pretty high numbers, actually almost comparable to the manager in education. So people that are working in coding education. So if we were going to go by salary alone on our decision on where to go, education would be at the top here, 69,824. So if we were going to decide on what we want to do just based on salary alone, coding education, and then just underneath that is coding and billing manager. Now, job responsibility is an important thing too. I have a lot of coders that will also say like, oh, well, I got all these credentials and now I think I should be making X amount of money because I saw that CPMAs make all this extra money. But you have to understand that your salary is based off of what your job responsibilities are and your performance in your job. So the fact that you got an extra credential, the fact that you got an extra degree doesn't always mean that your employer has to just bump you up because of that. If your job responsibilities haven't changed, if you're still giving them the exact same value, you will get the same value in your salary. That's why we have awesome people like the six-figure medical coder who work with coders specifically to go, hey, if you think you are worth this more in salary, this is how you advocate for yourself. And oftentimes that does mean that you have to leave your current employer and go somewhere else in order to be compensated what that value is. So never, ever, ever just take the salary survey over to your boss and go, I read on here that coders are making blah, 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 because your individual salary is what you're going to accept. Like you sign off on a piece of paper saying, yes, I agree to the salary when you agree for that job. So if you're not happy with your salary, you need to have that conversation with your employer about what is that extra value that you're providing that can increase your monetary compensation, or find another job that's going to compensate you more. Now this chart is super, super important too. Let's zoom this in a little bit more so we can really see some of these different credentials here. So this breaks down by credential. So we have our CPC, Certified Professional Coder, Certified Outpatient Coder, Certified Professional Coder Payer. This is actually a sunset credential, so you can't test for this anymore, but there are still people that hold this credential. It's interesting that they left it on there. I guess probably because historically they've kept it on the salary survey. Certified Inpatient Coder, Certified Risk Adjustment Coder, Certified Professional Medical Auditor, so auditing for professional services, not inpatient facility, pro fee services. CDEO, Certified Documentation Expert Outpatient, the approved instructor, the CPB, Certified Professional Biller, Certified Professional Practice Manager, Certified Professional Compliance Officer, okay, and then specialty credentials, and then we have, if you have any AAPC credential, 2 or more, and then 3 or more. So if we're again looking at this by salary alone, compliance officer, it would be where you would want to be if that's something, first off, that interests you. It's not going to make you completely miserable to do compliance. But if you're looking for what's going to pay me the most, compliance, because that's a lot of information that you need to know in order to work in compliance. A lot of different factors beyond just coding and billing. So in 2021, the average salary for a compliance officer was $80,550. It looks like second would be, again, education is a big one. And then CDEO, our outpatient documentation experts, are following just a little bit behind that. Now, one of the things I think here, again, is super, super interesting is that there's breakdown here by credentials and if you have multiple credentials. So you can see by the members polled that had one credential versus two or more versus three or more, there was a notable increase in salary. However, the thing you also need to consider about this is how long have people with three credentials been in the industry? Well, probably at least a year, right? Because it takes time to sit and study for those credentials and find a testing site and take the test and pass the exam. So not only is it just the fact that they have credentials, but the passing of time as well. People who have multiple credentials aren't just starting out, they've been in the industry probably for a little longer period of time. So don't think that there's a necessary correlation. So again, your salary is going to be correlated to the value that you are adding to an organization. So if your job skills haven't changed, but you've just gotten a new credential, that might not necessarily increase your salary right away. You may have to get into a new position where you have different job skills, where you have higher level tasks to do to be compensated in the way that you want to be compensated. So when you see this, it's important to understand that these people that have 2-3 credentials have also been in the industry for a little bit longer. So just because you piggyback and you decide to get 3 credentials within a year doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to automatically get that increase in salary. Now here we have regional differences, and this has kind of stayed about the same as far as things like the California region paying higher than, some of our more mid-Atlantic or southern areas. But because we're starting to see so much more remote work, there are a lot of opportunities now if you are a coder in an area where you aren't compensated as well, that you could find a billing and coding company that is located in California and will reimburse you at a higher rate. So those are some things that are coming into. We're also going to start seeing soon the more kind of gig work styles of medical coding coming into the playing field. Now, this one I always find very interesting. It's the breakdown by your education. And by education, we mean degrees. So this one we have is no college. This one is some college or an associate's degree, which is where I fall. I have some college, but I never finished my degree. And then the bachelor's degree, and then the master's degree and above. And I love this graph because it really demonstrates there's not a huge difference in salaries until you're at that master degree level. Once you hit that master degree level and you're someone who is in a director position, or you are, the head compliance officer, and you something that requires a master's degree, that's when you're compensated at that higher level. So a common thing I'll hear coders say is they're like, oh yeah, I'm a coder, but I want to get paid more. So I'm going to go back for my bachelor's degree because then I'll get paid more. Well, let's look at this. So if you're someone who's interested in going for a bachelor's degree program, a 4-year degree program, and you're currently in this stage where you have no college, so we're talking $52,253 with that bachelor's degree. You're going to make $55,632. So we're only talking about a difference of a few $1,000s. Now, what is the average cost of a bachelor's degree? Well, I Googled it. The average cost of a bachelor's degree is maybe $300 to $400 in student loan payments a month. So let's do some quick math here. 55,623 minus 52,253, $3,370 a year. That's the increase that you would see on average from a bachelor's degree. Okay, so if we take that, we divide it by 12 months in a year, that's $280. So if you're paying $300 or $400 for student loans, you're actually going to make less money than you would. Now, there's other things to consider if you have an employee compensation program where they're going to pay for your tuition, or if you just really want that bachelor's degree, you want more education, you're thirsty for it, you want that higher level of education, by all means, go for it. But if you're in it just for the money, overall, you might not be coming out ahead. Just kind of continuing on our math here, let's say that you get a part-time job and you get, $25 an hour for that part-time job, you would only have to work 11 extra hours a month in order to get that extra pay that you would get from having a bachelor's degree. So if your goal is just to make more money, you could probably make as much as you would get for an increase for having a bachelor's degree just working an extra 2 days a month. Now, are there some jobs out there that you might need your bachelor's degree for? Yes, although I am seeing a lot more organizations saying bachelor's degree, but in lieu of that, you can have X, Y, Z. So, we want you to be a compliance officer and have a bachelor's degree, but in lieu of that, we want you to have 5 years of healthcare experience or something similar. I've even seen this a lot with practice management, that they'll say, oh, well, we want you to have a bachelor's degree, but if you have 5 years of experience, you don't have to have a bachelor's degree. So there's some personal situation things there that have to be weighed. Next, we have workplace venues. So where is everyone working? It looks like most people are working in health systems. So when we say health system, one near me is Lehigh Valley Health Network. They have hospitals, they have physician practices, they have emergency rooms, they have urgent cares, they have, outpatient surgical centers. That is more the health system. Solo practice or small group practices. Then we have medium, large group practices, hospital outpatient, hospital inpatient and outpatient. That's a good amount of them. Health system, billing company, payer/health system. There's a little bit that's working for consulting firms and then a tiny bit working in educational institutions. Not a lot of people working just hospital inpatient, probably because most of those hospitals have been partnered up and are now part of a health system. And then we have salary by location. You can see here those health systems pay the most because they have the most resources. They have the biggest organizations there, the hospitals, the outpatient clinics, everything with physician practices, etc. So those usually have the highest compensation, and we can see that here on this graph. Second would be those larger group practices. And then here it speaks more to how coders don't necessarily want the carrot on a stick anymore. They want flexibility. They want flex time. They want sick time. They want paid holidays. They want good benefits, good health insurance. So there's a lot more increase now. But there's also some data up here. Is it down here? Where is it? Oh, it says here most AAPC members are held to a 40-hour work week, but some 26.7% report working up to 50 hours a week. So we're working a lot in this industry, a lot. Most people are paid hourly, 70.8%, which means some of you are getting some good overtime benefits, right? And it says, although this is interesting, and this seems odd to me, it says, perhaps because of this most, 63.7% are not held to production standards. So that's interesting. I would think that if we have 70.8% paid hourly, that those would probably be productivity-based workers. But I guess that's considering the fact that we're not just talking coders here. It says here AAPC members. So if we're polling all of the members, that's going to include some of those jobs that aren't really productivity based, like compliance and practice management, which is probably why we're seeing a higher number than we might think for productivity in regards to coding, because they're polling all of the members, not necessarily all of the coders for the productivity standards. And then it just speaks to how we have just so many different career opportunities, medical billers, auditors, compliance officers, practice managers. There's a lot more developing as the healthcare systems develop, and a lot more opportunities, industry trends. Artificial intelligence is coming in to aid us, not replace us, aid us. Telehealth, population health, value-based care, medical record interoperability promises. Yeah. And so they give the information here on how they conduct the survey, some of the resources. So there's a lot to think about when you're reading this. It's not necessarily, I'm going to go get my CPCO because it says it makes all this money. You also have to consider, if you want that salary, you have to do the job tasks of someone in a CPCO, a compliance officer position. You have to have the years of experience. You have to be in the right region even. You can see there's some regional differences in pay. So in order to maximize, there's a lot of things to think about. And, if you don't really like compliance, maybe that's not really the job for you after all, right? So I hope you found this breakdown helpful. Definitely let me know in the comments below. I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, just keep on coding on.